So that was an absolutely perfect transition by you. And somebody just, I was intrigued by this comment. We could probably wrap up with this tonight. Is Arrowpoint says, did y'all talk about Pepe listing yet? What if our H coins get listed after the SEC, after SEC loses the case? So, Ewok, you just perfectly exemplified kind of like why. Richard's case against exchanges and stuff like that. But yeah, to his point, the news there that Coinbase listed Pepe today with like 4 or 5 other tokens, Pepe being one of them, which I found interesting. And yeah, we've been seeing I've been seeing Hexo lobbying all throughout Twitter about Hex and Pulse being listed somewhere or on Binance and stuff. That's been we've had this discussion so many times, and it's the age old argument about like no, we're decentralized, we don't do that. Richard fired off a bunch of tweets months ago that we went over about him shitting all over centralized exchanges, how horrible they are. It's expensive to get on there, all that stuff. Yeah. There have been people in favor of both. You just talked about it. Crypto Coffee and some other people spearheaded getting a listing on MEXC. And that's when Richard actually fired off those tweets right around that time, which was an interesting time. But yeah, it's the, the oldest argument of like, well, you're sacrificing the principles basically for potentially more growth by letting these exchanges have an allotment to have people maybe buy Pulse so they can get right into the ecosystem. It's been so back and forth. But what do you make of this? What do you feel about the philosophy overall? And what do you make of his question? Because I personally, again, I'm going to say, I don't think the SEC result or anything to do with the SEC will have anything to do with that happening.
No.
What's going to happen is going to happen, and they're kind of inconsequential. But I don't know. I want your answer on this. Do you think that they do get listed at some point, or what may happen there?
I think at some point, I think longevity will be in our favor. Again, I think the only way it happens is a couple cycles in, and we're still here, and we're still yelling loud, and there are still people that are buying it and staking it. Obviously, you can't stake on exchanges, but I think the time kind of does us our own favor, and that's all it's got to be. I don't want to bow down, and I think that's one of the reasons why Richard kind of feels that way too. No one probably paid to get Doge listed. No one paid to get ETH or Bitcoin listed. These things just kind of happened automatically over time, and once you kind of earn that right, and I think that's probably what happened with Pepe. I don't know of who's in charge. I mean, I don't know. Is there really somebody in charge of Pepe? Or did they just finally listed it because it's still here, type of thing. And I think that's kind of what happens to us. I think these guys may eventually just get tired of hearing from us and list them. And then, once that happens, it'll kind of domino to the other ones. One big one, whether it's Gemini or Lord forbid, I doubt it'll be Binance because they're one of the biggest gatekeepers of our stuff. Who knows? Maybe Richard winning the case will, or how about this? Let's paint this picture. We win the SEC case. We create precedent moving forward that Coinbase can then use in their argument, and it wins them a case. Wouldn't that be funny if something like that happened? Yeah. And then they kind of give us a nod and say, here, we're going to list your stuff, because it potentially helped them. I mean, something like that. I could totally see something like that happening as to where Coinbase does it. And then once Coinbase would list it, then, all the other ones could open up as well. So you get Gemini or at that point, Binance would do it because they couldn't gatekeep the rankings anymore because we're not on an official exchange. That just throws that whole thing out the window where they would have to rank it properly. So that's what I see happening. That's what I see how it should play out and would be the best way to play out. But we did just fine guys. We did a 10,000x with hex without anything, right? With just Uniswap. We made Uniswap the most popular DEX before it started to do all its other stuff, and then they shit on us. So it's just kind of the way it goes sometimes, where you are better off and you do create. Nobody wants to hear it, nobody likes to hear it, but opportunity is before people know about it, and that's where we're still at. It's still opportunity, and people just aren't seeing how undervalued these things are. If they could see the future, my guess is that they would be buying a lot more at these prices, because we may never see them again.
Yeah. It sounds like your point is basically, if it were to get listed, it would take something out of our power. Like, we're not ponying up, Richard's not ponying up.
Yeah.
It would be Coinbase like, oh, okay, hey, we'll just voluntarily do this based on this other thing happening. So I see where you're coming from. I do think it would have to be some kind of scenario like that, because Richard's certainly not going to ever be begging to be on an exchange. That's just not going to happen.
And Arrow Point does bring up, what I was basically saying. I think this case could set precedent down the road. People may finally understand and believe that Richard is doing this for all of crypto. It's not about him. It's not about, yes, obviously he wants to cover his own ass. But he's hired a dream team of people to set precedent moving forward for a lot of things. And this could be paramount to, the next several years, especially with the change of administration, where they back off completely in a lot of places. So could be very good. Could be very good for us moving forward.